So it seems like the massive success of Arc Raiders is taking the world by storm, with 700,000 people playing the game. It might even hit 1 million by next week. We have no idea at this point. The numbers are just going up. But controversy has also struck this game, and it seems like a reviewer named Rick Lane, who has put a post on Eurogamer, which seems a lot of people are not too happy with, has provided the product overall quality by lowering the overall metric score to 88 and giving Arc Raiders a 2 out of 5 rating due to generative AI usage. Now, those who don't know about AI, and when it comes to Embark Studios, they are not innocent of using AI in the past before. They have used AI in the finals for voice lines and dialogue that they have admitted to as well. And they have used AI in the same product here with Arc Raiders, which, if you don't live under a rock and you hear the voices of the dialogue within Arc Raiders, you've noticed that it really just sounds very generic as hell. And it doesn't sound that good, quite frankly. It's kind of utterly pointless, to be honest with you. The most voicing that I hear from the product in general is really based on the players themselves creating the conversations and better dialogue than the actual voice acting from the traders and the, people that we are playing with in the product. Overall, it's not too good. I don't think anybody really cares much about the story, rather they care more about the world and what's going on around them and why these Arc are even here to begin with. In general, I do believe that the reviewer is correct when it comes to their voice lining sounding utterly bad. It's not wrong at all, because if you take a second to actually hear the voice lining within the traders, within the game, even just from the emotes that you can call to other raiders, it doesn't really sound all too good. It sounds very generic, and it seems like a little bit more tweaking could have been done on their end to increase the quality of the voicing for a lot of those, character models that they have in the game. But it seems like Embark Studios CCO says that they don't use generative AI in places that people are saying, and that they use AI text-to-speech to use to help make richer worlds while keeping the studio small. So there's no end goals to replace any of the actors that already did their voice lines, that already have contracts with the company, and it seems like from their point of view, they're saying that the actors have consented to this. Now, there could be some contract obligation to that, whether the voice actors actually did consent to this or not. Maybe we might have to revisit this in the future if a voice actor comes out and says that they were not happy with the quality of their voice acting, or they did not consent to this. That could be revisited, and that might be, a very big issue down the road if that were the case. I really do feel like that the way Rick Lane is going about his review is trying to attack the product as a whole, because he might have some type of personal issue with just how AI is used in the entire industry in general. And I do feel like AI is a problem in a lot of ways, where AI can replace the artistic visions and values of what human beings are able to provide that AI simply cannot. And we've seen this type of slop before with, AI generative content. And even Sora itself is not perfect. It's still perfecting itself by the day. There's a lot of open source AI out there that is still evolving as the weeks go by, and probably more rapidly than human beings have been doing as of recently too. But it's getting to a scary place. I'm not going to lie to you. It's getting to the point for some individuals you don't even know what's real and what's not. But to say here that the game is simply a 2 out of 5 based on the AI alone, this is where I have a massive disagreement, because the product in itself, and something that I've even mentioned in my last video, that it's not based on just the story of the game and where this world is taking place. It's based on the people that make the stories within the world itself. The players themselves, in reality, is kind of the real story being told here. How many different instances of friends or foes are being made within each playthrough session of this game. I think even just the peer-to-peer voice communication is more of a story from the raider in itself than it's even being told from the storytelling perspective of what Arc Raiders wanted to do, or even Embark Studios wanted to do originally with this product, even if they were going to do a PvE game at first. Because we have to remember, Arc Raiders originally was going to be a PvE game before they made the decision to go to a PvPvE extractor shooter. Before they made that type of decision model, they were going to do a PvE game. Now, let me say this as well. If this game was purely PvE and they used AI to cut corners for everything, this would have been a massive landmine, and everybody probably would have shitted on this game it would have not done well. It could have been one of the biggest flops and failures if it was only a PvE game with the usage of generative AI all across the board, even if the CCO claims that they are not using it in that way. But let's say if they did, this would have been a bigger problem. However, though, that is not the case in 2025. The product is massively successful, and it's taking the world by storm, and a lot of individuals are enjoying this game, including myself. I don't think I really care much, including maybe yourself, when it comes to looking at cutscenes or anything like that. I really just skip all of it because I'm looking forward to playing with other players. I'm eager to the social connection and the gameplay loop that the game is providing, even though there is actual issues there with like desync that I'm sure Embark Studios is working on, and they're trying to fix those problems as well. But besides that, the AI side of things, if there is consent being made between the voice actors and how they use their text-to-speech model and the 3D animation already using AI in itself, which has been used for years already from many different development studios, I don't think there is an actual massive problem here. It's getting a little bit blown out of proportion based on past annoyances with companies that use AI and other companies till this day that still use AI in a grander scheme of things. That is the real problem in situations going on out there. So I think Embark Studios is unfortunately in a sniper scope of already angry people that are anti-AI that just hit them by accident. And it's not really an actual use of AI all across the board, where the game is fundamentally built on the foundations of only AI making their game successful. I think the wrong measures are being looked at here, and there's no good end in sight for the anti-AI individuals in the comments that are really mad at Embark Studios for this type of usage. And for people bashing the product because they just don't like the fact that they are using AI at all and they're completely against AI usage, that's something that we're not going to inevitably stop in 2025. AI is going to get used more and more as we go throughout the years to help assist things for businesses, especially if businesses are more on the smaller spectrum and they're not massive AAA publisher studios like Ubisoft, Activision. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something that is going to help a lot of other small businesses help get to areas that they need to get to by assisting them in their creation, but not taking over the creation in itself, which is the ultimate goal of AI usage, is to be an assistance model to the creation of the human person. That is the point of all of this. But people hear the word AI and they flip out. You would think people were talking about Allen Iverson, but it's not. It's straight up AI. It's the evil of the world, according to some people. God forbid you hear those two initials and the world is packed up. I'm telling you right now, back in my day, AI would just meant you were getting crossed over by a sham god NBA move from Allen Iverson. That's all it was. We talking about practice?
This, man, what are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice.
With that being said, I really feel like we do need to pick and choose our battles when it comes to AI being the main nuance of conversation where we are completely angry all the time because that is being used for something per assistance to help something grow. I think we need to really understand what it is being used in the context of something, then make a more educated decision based on the scenario it is being placed in. Now, another thing that I found quite funny was that the CEO of Epic Games, Tim Sweeney, also joined the argument in defense of AI. And he talked about in the Twitter post with the Eurogamer article saying that political opinion should be kept into op-ed, folks. Basically just saying that a lot of people are just shoving a lot of political takes onto this when it's not really a politic conversation, and everybody nowadays kind of makes things about politics. It's more about ethics of whether AI is good or bad. But that's just how human beings work. When they get emotional, they get upset, they bring up anything. But when he was asked about this on Twitter, or whether he, dislikes the AI should be considered political, Sweeney replied with, yes, this technology increases human productivity in some areas by integer multiples, and views on whether this is a net good and should be rewarded or bad and should be fought against are speculative and generally distributed along political lines. He also follows up with this here, saying that the author states a pessimistic case, and he'll put an optimistic one here. Game developers compete to build the best games in order to attract gamers. When tech increases productivity, competition leads to building better games rather than employing fewer people. Now, in response to Tim Sweeney's post, this individual said that I'm for that absolutely as an old lifelong gamer, but AI voices put voice actors out of work. The models trained on stolen art are also a concern. I know you fought for open platforms across the world to make sure devs keep more money from their sales. And then Tim Sweeney responded, said, I think there's an even bigger opportunity for in-game voice and voice actors. Instead of games having a few dozen of hundreds of lines pre-recorded dialogue, how about infinite, context-sensitive, personality reflecting dialogue based on and tuned by human voice actors. I always found pre-written lines of fixed dialogue super limiting, and it was painful to write text to dialogue in ZZT in 1991 after writing more dynamically composed text adventure games in the 80s. AI dialogue generation plus human personality and tuning could totally transform gaming. And I do think Tim has a really good point there as well. I feel like the more we grow as individuals in the tech world as well, and we expand the limits of how far this type of technology can go, we can use this to our advantage rather than always looking this as a negative to replace voice actors, to replace any type of animation within a product, rather than being this total bad look and being this bad omen amongst the industry that is just hurting people's livelihoods. And I understand there is a portion of that is currently happening, and people are not too happy about that. And I won't disagree on that, matter, because at the end of the day, that's more of a political matter. I'm not trying to make this a politic video. But I will say, I do feel that there can be more good that comes out from this if used in the correct measures. And if things were actually used in the wrong ways here, and it wasn't just TTS being used, and the entire product was built on the foundations of AI and no consent of these voice actors, this would be a completely different discussion, and we would totally be on the side of bombing Embark Studios extremely hard. And I get that. But I do feel like that is not the case here. And they are, unfortunately, once again, like I said earlier, in the scopes of something that already was in the scope by angry anti-AI people. Now, the one thing I know people are going to blow out of proportion is the fact that the same reviewer who made the post on Eurogamer about Arc Raiders giving it a 2 out of 5 due to its AI usage, overall giving the Metascore a lower rating, he also provided a post on Concord 3 months ago, which gave that game a 3 out of 5. So he's basically saying that Veilguard was a better product than Arc Raiders because, simply put, it had actual people on the product in comparison to Arc Raiders, which is using AI to advance the product. And he seems to have his bias. He has a personal bias against AI, which is totally understandable. But in this case, the conversation is flawed on how the AI is used if the actors consented properly to let the company use the text-to-speech models to simply enhance the voice dialogue in areas that they, cut corners with, which is totally fine. Like, if that's what they're doing and there's consent and there's a contract, I don't see the problem there. But even in Rick Lane's review, in Concord's sense, I read the review, actually looked through it. He wasn't taking the side of Concord at all. He was also saying that there was good decisions that they made, but at the same time, there was a lot of muddled hero designs and unimaginative maps and modes that left that game struggling to stand out for a game that took 8 years to make. So I do think people are going to twist that narrative and try to connect him with some type of political left-leaning, this type of leaning person. I don't really care too much about that. I care about why he decided to give that review a higher score, but I just think that's his personal stance on AI in itself, thus leading to him why he left such a strong negative review, because maybe also it didn't scratch the niches for him of what makes a game thoroughly enjoyable, and I can understand that. Like, I'm not here to belittle him on that part, but I do still think giving the game a 2 out of 5 on AI alone and not covering all other areas of what makes that game truly a fun product outside of just the really good gameplay loop the game makes, and missing the point of like the human connection that is being made of everybody bonding together and creating all these epic moments within these very beautiful maps that Embark Studios has worked on. I think that is totally against what everything a journalist should do when they are reviewing something, and you shouldn't put your own ideas or your own personal conflicts within a review, and you have to judge everything on the entire spectrum based on just one particular thing, which, even though that one particular thing is a major haul to always look at and oversee, but I do think it affects your validation on giving an actual genuine review when you decide to go down that narrow hallway, which is obviously a big hallway for a lot of people, but it still doesn't look at every sides of the game, in my personal opinion, where it really shines. And there's such a fun loop to the product for $40, by the way. It's not a $60 game. You don't even need to buy the deluxe edition. It's $40, and people are already getting, what, 70, 80, 90 hours out of the game? I think that's just worth the $40 alone, like I said in my last review. But I do think when you base your entire review on one particular area that you are not satisfied with, and then go into a very basic of in-depth discussion of what you were saying about the PvE, PvP scenario in your review, because I did read through it, it doesn't come out as you actually looking at those systems with a much more broader idea or broader spectrum. You're hindering the entire product based on something that the company already admitted to, they already discussed about, they already openly acknowledged on multiple posts already since the finals as well. I think that really just hurts your credibility as a reviewer when the game in itself, the gameplay loop, the systems in play, the systems that are provided even from the main menu screen alone are really fucking good for $40. Like, I think that we're totally missing that point. And the fact that you're acting like the world in itself around you is not as immersive because this AI experience of voice generation is really the quote-unquote black mark against its reputation, it really just hinders the credibility, in my opinion, of your review, and also makes me question, who did you play with? Who were you playing the game with that could have gave you a more rich, enhanced experience? Or was that AI usage, in your words, so bad, it was so uncoherently disrespectful to your personal taste, like tasting a bad wine, so to say, that it just really had to give this game a shit review, just a slap in the face, because you were the only reviewer to do this. While being said, you have a good point. It just looks like you gave this game the shaft because you were more of the odd man out in amongst a massive crowd of people that are praising and loving the game, regardless of the controversy between Game of the Year, between Arc Raiders and Expedition 33 and all that nonsense that's going on. It still seems like you played the game with a very minimal aspect just from reading the review. The things you've said, yeah, made sense, but I don't know if you played this game as much as everybody else has been playing this product. So I have no idea. Quite frankly, I can't comment on that. But what I can say is this review is really just based on the basis of this individual's personal annoyance with how AI is used in the grand scheme of things with gaming, and I guess in general of everything, of the quality of life nowadays and where we're at. And I can understand that, but personally, I think the product itself overrides the net negative that you're trying to put here, which really isn't a net negative if used in the right ways, which Embark Studios is clearly doing for assistance and usage of consent of what they've claimed with the voice actors as well. I do think that part is just being a little bit blown out of proportion, and there was no need for this review to hit this 2 out of 5. It just seems like more of a hit piece to go on to Embark Studios just to be the odd man out of all the other reviews to make you seem a little bit more different. That's just my opinion, though. I'm not saying that this guy is a bad person. I just think that's what he's doing here because he has a personal bias, you know. So I'll just say that much. Outside of that, I think the game is phenomenal. I'm having a blast. The voice acting and the AI usage of those voices, can they be improved? Can Embark Studios follow up with a comment on this as well, and maybe an update? Maybe they do something about some of these traders. For sure, 100%. Can we get better in the future with this? 100%. But is the game not remarkably playable and enjoyable, and it works surprisingly? Over 700,000 players playing the damn game, and it's stable, and it's built off of Linux, and it's also using a really good anti-cheat that Activision, which I'll always shit on them for, doesn't hardly do for Warzone, and people run amok on those games for years. Meanwhile, the anti-cheat in this game, if you get hit by a cheater, you actually get your fucking gear back. I mean, that's kind of a W in my opinion, and it shows a studio actually caring about its players getting did dirty, you know? So that's just my opinion. Overall, that's what I have to say about all of this. What do you guys think in the comments below? Much love to you. Keep on keeping on, and I hope you guys have been enjoying Arc Raiders. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.